Hello citizens and welcome back. In today's video I want to take a look at the current state of Star Citizen and its community and the direction we're heading in 2025. Last year was almost entirely taken up by the buildup of work and features related to server meshing, which before the end of the year culminated in the release of the 4.0 preview. And the community was full of expectations and anticipation for that very same patch. But right now, a month later, the issues are mounting and the community morale is dropping. So why did this happen, and can CIG keep their promise of focusing on playability in 2025? As always, if you like this video, sacrifice a like and a comment to the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more. And here's a shout out to our amazing patrons and channel members for their support of the channel and everything else I do. First of all, I think we need to talk about why 4.0 was so important. Not only to remind us of the journey that took us here, but to explain it to the new backers as well. The 4.0 patch has one very important feature. I'm of course talking about static server meshing. Server meshing is something we've been hearing CIG talk about for a few years now. I have a deep dive video on what it does and how it works, so feel free to go watch that first and then come back to this video. But in short, server meshing allows CIG to configure multiple servers to work together to simulate the in-game universe. Why is this important? Well, it allows CIG to do two things. One, it allows them to add more star systems and more locations and more content in general. And two, it allows them to expand the player capacity of each shard. Both are very important, especially since the plan is for Star Citizen to eventually have over 100 star systems and all players in one shard. Now, I mentioned shards, so what are those? A shard is a collection of game servers and other supporting services that make up one instance of Star Citizen, to which the players can connect. CIG have the ability to change the number of active shards to balance costs, as well as change the composition of a shard to optimize performance. Now, getting to this point has been a major focus of the development for the last few years, and 4.0 being released in preview was a big milestone for Star Citizen. However, the preview patch and then the following 4.0.1 live release had a very rocky start, with a lot of new issues appearing and a lot of old issues coming back, and also a very inconsistent player experience. For example, while some players were able to play mostly without issues, others couldn't access elevators or ships or inventories, and others couldn't even log in. And also a lot of missions and content from previous patches is missing. And while the hotfix patches over the last few weeks fixed a lot of the most critical issues, some still remain and many players in the community are becoming quite angry. Especially given the promise to focus on playability in 2025 given by Chris Roberts at CitizenCon. On top of this, a lot of major features like engineering were cut from the 4.0 release and moved to an unknown release in the future. Though arguably that might have been the right decision. So why is the state of Star Citizen the way it is right now? And when will CIG fix it? And the answers are surprisingly simple. But first, let me take a brief pause to pay some bills. Most of you watching are not subscribed, so go on and click that button. Also, don't forget to check out the latest episode of the Comm Relay podcast and my community apps, the Hauler and the Armory. Now let's get back to the video. So why did 4.0 break Star Citizen? Well, simply put, 4.0 brought in a massive shift in how the game operates in the background, and there was no way this transition was ever going to be smooth. Though admittedly, I didn't expect things to completely break down. But let's dive a bit deeper. From my point of view, the state of 4.0 can be attributed to two things. A human or planning error and a bunch of technical issues. Now, the line between the two is pretty blurry at times, but we will get to that. Also, last week we had a great Star Citizen Live episode talking about the issues around 4.0 and CIG's response and plans for the near future. The whole episode is a good watch, but I summarized some key points at the end of this video. So first, let's talk about the human or planning errors with 4.0. And I think this one was pretty obvious to everyone. The 4.0 preview was released a few days before Christmas, which is usually a time where most software companies have a release freeze. Now, I know a lot of developers in the comments will disagree with me, but there is nothing inherently wrong with releasing before a weekend or a major holiday. That is, if you have a stable product that is well tested or you have a very small release. 4.0 was neither of those things. So that left CAG with a choice. Either make your developers do overtime to put out fires of the release, or let it burn and pick up the pieces in January when everyone comes back. Both of those options suck. The first one makes your developers hate you, and the second one pisses off the community. CAG chose to let the release burn for the most part, which was ultimately the better choice given the context. They probably should have never pushed the preview release before the new year in the first place, but leaving it up over the holidays gave them a lot of information on which issues are the most common and most critical to resolve in a hotfix or a minor patch. Though, to be fair, and in an effort to self-reflect, I admit that I am often critical of CAG's release practices. Partially due to my own professional experience and partially due to having no visibility into their release approval process. So there may actually be a good reason for them to push releases before weekends or holidays. But now let's move on to the technical issues. As I mentioned before, server meshing is a major change in how the game works, not only from the point of view of the player, but also from a technical point of view. So all the supporting services need to be reworked to be able to connect to a server mesh and support it. Now, that might sound easy, but usually when you have multiple servers or services serving a lot of requests at once, things tend to get weird. I believe this is one of the main reasons we saw many issues with instance hangers, since ATC has been a separate service for a long time and server meshing might have broken it. The other big issue you might have noticed is that many missions are missing or are completely broken, and CAG actually explained why this is happening. The mission system wasn't converted in time for server meshing, so they are now trying to catch up and convert all the remaining missions and fix the broken ones. We will see how long this effort takes, but I imagine we might have to wait for a while, maybe even all the way into 4.1. And I think the final issue was player volume. If you played some of the final 4.0 PTU patches, you might have noticed that the game was pretty stable and playable, outside of the missing content. But then in the preview and later in live, we saw a lot of new issues and the game generally deteriorated over time. I think this can be attributed to the player volume. PTU patches usually see a lot less players than live, and I imagine that when CAG announced that the 4.0 preview progress will carry over to live, a lot of players who were sick of 3.24 went to try the preview patch, and then even more went to try the 4.0.1 live. And more people usually cause and find more problems, and Star Citizen in general is known for memory leaks and other performance issues, so I'm not surprised that long-running shards experience an increasing amount of issues. So when will CAG fix this? Is 2025 really going to be a year of playability, or just a year of putting out fires? Well, as with everything, it's hard to tell. But looking at the speed at which CAG are releasing hotfixes, and 4.0.1 and now 4.0.2, I actually have high hopes. I think we might see a stable game sometime before the end of February or early into March, and then CAG can outline their goals for 4.1 and beyond. But for now, we got some very interesting information in the latest Star Citizen Live about how CAG plan to improve stability and playability. The whole episode is a very good watch, but the key takeaways are that CAG will focus more on regular server maintenance to reduce performance issues, and any database and character stowing issues. We can also expect a monthly patch focused on fixes and stability. And finally, features will be released when they are ready, which I think is a major step in the right direction. So hopefully we won't see any more half-complete features that then take years to finish. But we will see how well CAG can follow their plan in the coming months. And with that being said, that's all for today. What do you think? Did CAG handle 4.0 well? Are they going to focus on playability? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, fly safe, and I will see you in the verse.